Hello and welcome to the Closer's Playbook, a podcast about selling your services as a freelancer. My name is Pete Beber. I'm the career sales professional here with my co-host,
Tyler Poole,
who is our career freelance specialist. And so today we wanted to talk.
Is general.
Today we wanted to talk a little bit about. There's a saying in sales called "sell what's in your bag." There's a reason for it. And Tyler, I want to start by asking you, when you hear "sell what's in your bag," what does that mean to you?
Sure, you can't sell something you don't know. When I started 5.5 years ago on my own, I tried to sell everything under the sun. SEO, paid pay-per-click, Google AdWords, YouTube, you name it. I was a Pinterest specialist. Whatever. And every platform under the sun.
So that was 5.5 years ago. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes over that time. What did you learn from going through that process of selling everything?
Sure. That even when I did close people, even when I did succeed on selling people, and I did succeed. I mean, I had client work. I've been in business for 5.5 years now, but my turnover was huge.
Turnover was huge.
Yep.
So, what would you attribute that turnover to then?
Not specializing, not selling, quote unquote, what was in my bag.
Yeah. So, is it fair to say you felt a little bit unfocused?
Sure. Yeah, 100%. And I think there's a pressure. Actually, I know there's a pressure with new freelancers to sell everything, to just get clients, however they can, whatever that looks like. Just go, get clients.
And I'll say that's not just in the freelancer world. Anyone coming into selling, especially in your first years, you just want to win every sale, right? You're trying to put money on the table. Sales, a lot like a freelancer, oftentimes is, we call it variable comp. It's a commission sales structure. If you don't sell, you don't earn. Same in the freelance space, right? 100%. If you don't sell, you're not putting food on the table. You're not putting 100%. Money in the bank. So it can be scary when you first start to be like, to say no. And we'll talk about no a little bit more in an upcoming episode. But the point being is, if you're trying to sell something that's outside of your bag, that is not part of your core competency, it's not really going to go very well. You'll have some successes here and there. But what happened after you started to, I think you started to find areas that you were good at, that you enjoyed working on more. What started to happen when you had more of a focus?
Sure. My first focus was local SEO, and then it morphed to e-commerce and backlinks.
Just to stop real quick, because I know a lot of people probably know what it means, but SEO.
Sure. Search engine optimization. That is what I do as a freelancer.
And what does that do for a customer?
It helps websites rank on Google. So,
okay.
But as local SEO is what it sounds like. It's for local businesses, your mom and pop shops around the corner, your not necessarily your large corporate chains, but the people who have been hurt most by the pandemic, actually.
So it sounds like you feel good about helping smaller businesses that are in more local communities.
Sure.
Perfect. So right there, you've already narrowed down also a customer.
But if I'm being honest with everybody out there, it wasn't because for any good reason other than it's the easiest form of SEO
for you.
Period. It is because there's. If you look at an e-commerce site, for example, they could be competing with 100 different, businesses. There's only going to be 5 to 10 dentists in a city, especially smaller cities. There's going to be a limited number of people in that city. Now, of course, if you're talking, we both live in Denver, Colorado. There's plenty of roofers. There's plenty of dentists. So yes, it's harder here, but. Yeah. But even if you break it into suburbs, that tends to make it easier to rank for.
So I think what we're hearing and seeing here is that you've done your homework on the area that you're focusing on. So you sounds like you started out really wide, and then you narrowed that down. What was involved in that narrowing process? I imagine because you were doing so many things early, it allowed you to stumble upon some things. Is that fair?
Sure. And Part of it's what you enjoy. If you are, I would say to any new freelancer, if you're looking to what you want to specialize in, first and foremost, what do you enjoy doing? If you don't enjoy like social media, I have all my accounts blocked to limited to 15 minutes. Why would I want to turn that into a business? But, I do like local business. I do, obviously you do, whoever you are, you shop in your community. And then that actually led me to my now focus in SEO, which is backlinks.
So you've narrowed down even further.
I've shifted. As I found what I liked to do. Yeah. But backlinks, they're hard. They're very analytical. They're very process driven. Which as an engineer by education, that's something that's very much in my wheelhouse. Spreadsheets and I get along pretty well. But it took me a long time to get there. So the first thing I would say is, as a freelancer, is what do you enjoy? And then the second thing is, what are you good at?
And now there's a few paths that you could get to becoming good at something too, sure. Right? You've taken, I know you've talked about courses that you've taken that have helped you do that. So, taking courses, I've definitely taken a lot of courses in sales. So more of my focus, right? You also were learning by doing. So now that you've had more of a focus, you can go into a customer and tell them, here's what I'm good at, right? And you you probably have a better idea on what you can charge and what the market can command and things like that.
Yep. Correct. Yeah. Yep.
So I think one of the things that it does to sell what's in your bag can get bigger, right? You can learn more things, you can try more things, and you can do that. But narrowing down to a core one or two things to start, I think is going to be a huge benefit, sure. Because you can go deep.
Yeah.
And then you want to say something?
Yeah. So a question for you is, as let's say you're a salesperson who's doing B2B and you want to transition into freelance, or let's say you're in a position where you're selling something that you don't know what you're good at, what you like to do. How do you handle that as somebody who probably deals with that a lot more than I do?
So over my career, I've sold a lot of different things. And at some of those companies, we've had a lot of options that we could sell. And some of those things I was good at selling. Some of them I wasn't. Being a part of large companies, Fortune 500 companies, you get more resources.
Sure.
So there is that to be said. Now I have worked at companies that are like 5 or 10 people, and you're selling one or two things. I think the benefit there is I got to know a lot about those things and how those impact businesses.
Yep.
I got to look at how are people using those services or those products today to impact their business. So I guess, I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but sometimes we have to sell some things that we don't know that much about, that we're still learning about. That's okay. Just continue to do your best to learn about those things, to dig a little bit deeper. And you can always say, you know what? I don't think this is what I want to be selling.
Sure.
When you're a freelancer, you have more autonomy to make those decisions, right?
So, and what would you, we talked when I was, 5 years ago when we talked, you probably answered this question, but what would you tell, what are the things to focus on? What should they be learning? What are the things that, especially in a new market or selling a product that you don't know that much about, how do you focus? How do you try to improve your sales process to, whether you're selling SEO or a Fortune 500 service? Yeah. What are the key things when you're starting out, when you're focusing, when you're finding your niche, for lack of a better word?
So let's say because for me, I haven't been a freelancer, so I can tell you my experience when coming into like a new company.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I come into a new company, I want to meet the people that I'm going to be working with. I want to listen to my manager. I want to talk to the people who've been doing it. Right now, in some spaces, that could mean jumping onto websites and forums.
Yep.
What are people running into? What are some questions that people are having early on? It could be joining a course, signing up for a course and jumping in and saying, hey guys, I'm new. What are some of the basics? You want to get that early foundation of, all right, who is our, what are we selling? What are the benefits? And then go deep on that one thing.
Okay.
That might be a little bit different for everybody because of the services that you're selling. And, I also, you hear it a lot, but I think for a freelancer, you've got a couple of options. If you've got a runway, you could jump and go all in with very little net, or you can start by learning on the side.
Sure.
Keep your business nights, mornings, weekends, spend the time for a few months. If you spend a few months, a few hours a week on a topic, you can start to really understand what needs to be done there. There's also tools. Sure. You've mentioned a number of tools that you use. So I guess the short of it is you just kind of have to get into it.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's a good point for either freelancers or B2B salespeople. The fact is we have to put food on the table, and we most of us, even if we are transitioning out of a B2B job to a freelancer, we say to niche down, we say to sell what's in your bag, and we realize that's not always possible. So it's interesting to hear how you go about you go about selling when you're not niche down, when you're not. And
I think it can be scary, to be honest, to niche really far down. Even when we were talking about recording our conversations in the form of this podcast, it was, how narrow do we want to be? Sure. And, we decided if we're narrow, selling your services as a freelancer is pretty narrow. You could talk about sales in any context,
sure,
but where's it going to be most helpful? You're a freelancer, I'm in sales, this is our bag, sure. Right? So now we can be more valuable to freelancers.
Right. Yeah. And with that being said, though, the sales professional here is Pete. I'm the freelancer, but I ask for advice from Pete and to this day.
And so my friends in enterprise sales and I, every day we're having conversations about sales scenarios, about sales methodologies, about processes they use. There's not a day that goes by, maybe a Saturday or Sunday here and there, but where we're not, I'm not having a conversation with oftentimes multiple people about specific scenarios. So we're not in a bubble. And I'm talking about not even people at my own company, people I've worked with over the years who are spread out at different companies. You say, hey, I had this happen. How would you respond? It's the same conversations we're having, but it's just two people in a different sales environment.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that, hopefully we can help bring to the freelance world.
If you don't have that sort of community already built in, do you have any resources for finding those people?
That's a really good question. In the freelance space, I think you've mentioned a number of courses.
Sure.
Do they have forums?
A lot of them do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Twitter is one where I just connected with somebody on Twitter who was building a really cool sales tool, and it's early on for him. I have lists of business and sales folks, and so I reached out to him, and now we've started a conversation, and he's building this really cool tool that could be really helpful for me in an area that I'm weak. Right. And so, starting conversations there, which I've been on Twitter for a number of years. I don't think I've ever really had a conversation, but all these people were talking about, I met so many people on Twitter, and I'm like, how are you? But I just went and was like, hey man, this looks cool. Can you tell me a little bit more about it and about you? And, now I've bought into his subscription, one of the early ones to jump on, and we've had some conversations about, hey, this would be really cool if you could do that. Or, hey, what have you seen in this area? This is an area I'm weak. What could you tell me about there? So I think sometimes you just gotta take the leap.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. I think that's great advice. And, we'll be setting up a email questions@closerstime.com or closersplaybook.com, excuse me. Where we will be fielding those questions. So if you're just not finding, these resources, if you're not finding these communities, shoot us an email. And we'd love to help.
Just head to theclosersplaybook.com and you'll be able to see it there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's probably a good place to wrap here. Hopefully we'll get some questions from folks, but always good to have the conversation.
Yeah, make sure to find us on your preferred platform for podcast and check us out on YouTube. Like, subscribe, do all the things, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks.